In this video, we're going to talk about using OWASP ZAP in order to perform some SQL injection in a database. Now, SQL injection basically is whenever you have a web form that is backed up by a database, and then if you're not doing proper sanitization against the web form, it allows me to send some malformed queries onto that SQL database in order to get more information back than was originally planned. So as an example, let's go ahead and take a look at this. I've got my Kali machine here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up OWASP ZAP. So it's going to be under Web Application Analysis, OWASP ZAP, and then this will take a moment to load up. What we're using OWASP ZAP for here essentially is as a proxy. A proxy as well as a way to be able to customize the options that we want to send. It gives us a little bit of flexibility that normal web browsers don't. Gonna start off saying, no, I don't want to persist this session, and start. And now up on the menu bar right here, I see I have a little icon that looks like a Firefox web browser. And if I open that up, what it does is it opens up Firefox for me with OWASP ZAP here set up as its proxy. So once it opens, let me go ahead and browse to the website that I want to attack, which is http://192.168.0.10, which is my DVWA site. And along with running as a proxy, OWASP ZAP will open up this information right here, which is what's called the heads up display. I'm just going to say continue, and then over on the left hand side here, it's currently out of scope. I want to click out of scope and add it to the scope. Let's go ahead and log in. Username by default for DVWA is admin and password. And very quickly, if I go into my OWASP ZAP session here, we'll start seeing all the various posts and requests that I've been doing on this website. So we'll see that it actually shows a history of all my activities. And this is what comes in very helpful in future. DVWA, first thing I want to do is I want to change the security level to low, submit, and then go to SQL Injection. Now this form right here is designed simply you give it a user ID and then it returns back the username or the first and last name of the users who have that ID. And that's what it's designed to do. So if I type in 1 here and hit submit, it says the first user ID is 1. If I hit 2, it is Gordon Brown, and so on. Now this form right here is susceptible to vulnerabilities. For instance, if I type in 1 or 1 equals 1, and you'll notice as I look through here, I'm missing my first quote. I'm missing a quote before my first one, and I'm missing a quote before my last one. This form essentially puts quotes around all this for me. So if I click submit right here, what it's going to do is it's going to return user ID 1 or anything that ends with 1 equals 1. And we'll start seeing that returns back pretty much everybody. Now just a little bit of searching or a little bit of understanding of this database, and we'll start seeing that it's probably doing some sort of a SQL query such as this. It's doing a select first name, last name from a table called users, where user ID equals, and then whatever ID we're typing in. Now the SQL injection in this case works out because there's no sanity checking on what is in the ID field. So what I've actually done by what I typed in was I added in a or 1 equals 1. So we're saying at this point, give me all the users with this user ID or whenever a blue is blue, and blue is always blue, so therefore it gives me everybody. And that's what we see right here is we see that there were a lot of users returned back. Well, This can be very useful when you start learning more about SQL, especially about various types of SQL, to be able to start looking for the operating system that SQL is running on, the version of SQL that it's running on, and then even what tables and the content of those tables. Let's see, let's try, very briefly, let's try one quote or 1 equals 1 union select null comma database #, and we'll see if this works. No, it tells me there's an error, so I must have a typo in there. But what that was doing was hopefully telling me what type of database it was, what the database name was, and so on. Now this is all really helpful while we're looking at it through this web form right here. The history can kind of come in here with DVWA. If I scroll down here and I can see the very last successful request was this right here, and this was the vulnerabilities. So up here in the URL, vulnerabilities SQLI ID equals 1 or 1 equals 1. And that's kind of what this is. The %27 is the single quote. We've then got or, and then 1 equals 1. And I can replay this in the browser, and it keeps returning back all of the information. Now, that's not necessarily important at this point, since it is just going through and I have a form I could type this in. However, if I change the DVWA security from low to medium, and then go back to my SQL injection form, we'll notice that I no longer have a tab to type or a form field to type anything in. I now have a drop-down list. So for instance, if I click submit now, I still get my first name and last name. However, the post is different, or the command is different. Instead of a get command, it's now a post command. Instead of having the information here in the URL to modify, it is actually down here in the post information. So DVWA comes in of allowing me to do essentially the same thing I did before, except down here. So I could say 1 quote or 1 quote equals quote 1, and cross my fingers that I'm not missing a typo here. Replay in browser. Ooh, still a typo. The rules change a little bit since it is a form instead of a a post instead of a get. Let me there we go. Okay. There we go. So there's my ID equals 1, and then I change this to or. Nope, that's the typo. Excuse me. Do I not need the quotes? Play. There we go. I didn't need the quotes. That was my issue. So even though the web developer gave me a drop-down list instead of a field to type in, I can still do the same. That's awesome. And then just like before, I can start changing this into other things, such as 1 space union select 1 comma version. Okay. And with any luck, that will return back my database version. In this case, it's a MariaDB running on Ubuntu. And so it gives me information about the database. Now, if I know a lot of things about the MariaDB, I can then start looking at this and start changing it. Instead of select version, I could have it start telling me table underscore name from information underscore schema dot tables. And that should start telling me back all of the tables that are on this system. such as say, files, events. If I scroll down through here, I'll eventually see a users table. Privileges. Somewhere in here is a users table. But this is listing back all the tables that's on the machine. And this is where knowing how SQL works can come in handy. So there you go. That's a brief introduction on how to use OWASP ZAP in order to scan through the system and perform SQL injections. At this point, if you want to take this further, you need to start learning a little bit about how SQL works. For instance, let's see. For instance, I can come in here and I can start changing that. I can start changing my command from just select one with the table, and I can start typing in cat table underscore name comma 0x0a comma column name information or schema dot columns where table underscore name equals users and with a pound sign, and then replay, and nah, it's still got a typo. So it takes a little bit of work in order to get this working out properly. However, once you do know exactly how SQL works, these tools get you right in. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and I hope it helps you make your systems more secure and